Our story begins on Coruscant as Anakin Skywalker is asleep next to his wife for the first time in months. For more time than he cared to remember, he's been out in the Outer Rim, fighting battle after battle, watching men die as every day seemed to blend together. He'd gone into somewhat of a numb state emotionally, but the joy and wit that he always had inside of him returned, as he and Kenobi battled the droids above Coruscant. Just knowing that Padme was on the planet below waiting for him, it gave Anakin all the strength he needed, and that strength, plus some help from the dark side, allowed Anakin to defeat Dooku, killing him in cold blood. But the war was going to end soon. Anakin was going to have the life he always wanted, once Grievous is found and destroyed. And to make everything even better, Padme was pregnant with their child. His mind was completely at peace, unlike it ever has been. But then everything would begin to twist inside of Anakin's sleeping mind. It was like a dark serpent entered his brain. Images would begin to flash inside of his dreams. He saw Padme, screaming out, crying for Anakin, begging for his help as she was giving birth. But as these dreams grew louder, Anakin felt himself waking up back in his bed. But he refused. He stopped himself from awakening, diving deep into the Force, and somehow, Anakin Skywalker found himself in the dream. Everything seemed to freeze. Padme was giving birth. Obi-Wan was next to her. Outside of the room were Bail Organa and Grandmaster Yoda. Anakin didn't understand. Where was he? Why wouldn't he be here? Anakin was holding on to this dream by using the dark side. The dark side was all around the dream, and so he simply reached out with it, grabbing it, holding on, seeing inside of it. And inside of this dream, inside of this potential future, Anakin closed his eyes, and he searched the Force, looking for himself in this future galaxy. His mind would travel across the stars, taking him all the way to Coruscant. And Anakin would quickly find himself inside of the medical center just outside of the main city, the center that was used to treat the most gruesome injuries suffered during this war. Anakin could hear terrible screams as he was brought inside of the facility, and he would see a burned, broken, horrific body being put together. And it didn't take long for Anakin to recognize the screams and the eyes of this man. It was him. Anakin would see himself rising up on the table, wearing the armor of Darth Vader, next to a hooded man that he could not see under the hood of. In the dream, Anakin muttered to himself that this could not be, and the hooded man actually turned to him, almost as if he were here as well in the vision. Anakin saw only a pair of yellow eyes under the hood, as he suddenly would now wake up in the bedroom next to Padme, sitting up, breathing hard, completely shaken. And across Coruscant, Darth Sidious would be hit with a blast of the Force as he was thrown violently against the wall in his lair. He was here, manipulating the dark side of the Force, using Sith alchemy to show Anakin a dark vision of the future. But something has gone terribly wrong. Sidious didn't know what happened. It were as if Anakin took control of the vision itself. He wondered what Anakin may have seen, and as Sidious got back to his feet in the lair, he knew what he should do. He should fear Anakin's power. He should try and go kill him, rule the galaxy without him. But he couldn't. He needed Anakin on his side. It went beyond calculations and reasoning. It would be the ultimate victory to tear down the Jedi with their beloved Chosen One. And so this sequence would only affirm to Sidious that he needs the power of Skywalker by his side. When morning came around, Anakin would not go to Yoda's quarters to ask him about the visions. Instead, he traveled across the city with determination rather than fear, and he would come upon the medical center from his visions. Anakin would rummage through the facility, moving through every level, trying to find the armor or the room that he saw in the vision, but he couldn't find it. And as he moved, Anakin finally got to a room that was locked, only to be accessed by the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. Anakin's anxiety would not allow him to be stopped by a locked door, so he ignited his blade and plunged it right into the blast doors. Alarms began to go off in the facility, and for a few long minutes, Anakin carved a hole into the blast door while shutting the ones behind him. He could hear clone troopers, doctors, officers, all on the other side of the doors, trying to get through. But finally, Anakin cut a hole large enough, and he stepped inside of the Chancellor's personal facility. And as Anakin looked around, he felt like he was going to throw up. The surgical table in the center of the room, the med droids, healing tanks, everything in here was exactly as Anakin saw in his dreams. And as the clones continued to work through the blast doors keeping them out of this room, Anakin felt a small gust of wind, and a cold chill ran down his spine. And seemingly, from out of nowhere, a hooded figure appeared in this room, out of the shadows, telling Anakin that the Force has brought them together. The Dark Lord pulled down his hood, revealing the face of Darth Sidious, of Chancellor Palpatine. Not long ago, from across the city, Chancellor Palpatine was alerted that the alarms to his personal medical facility had been triggered. In that moment, Sidious realized the truth from last night. Anakin saw more than just Padme in the visions of the future. He saw a possible future of himself, and he now found himself in this room. So, Palpatine went into the hidden tunnels under Coruscant, the same tunnels that could take him to the Sith Lair, 500 Republica, and the Executive Building, and he took the tunnels to this facility, moving through a secret entrance and finding Anakin in here. And now, in this room, Anakin was staring face to face with the Sith Lord, Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin ignited his blade, saying he doesn't understand. What exactly is going on? Again, Sidious told Anakin that the Force has brought them together far earlier than Palpatine would have wanted or anticipated. But there must be a reason for this. Still, Anakin didn't understand. He was shaking his head, grabbing at it, wondering if this was all another dream. He was muttering to himself, saying it can't be real. Palpatine can't be a Sith. And Palpatine, using his calm voice, told Anakin that his dreams must have shown him this place in order to warn him of what he will become if he does not join the Sith. He reminded Anakin of the power that he felt versus Dooku, and he will need that power if he is to save Padme from certain death. But Anakin would not be falling for it this time. Palpatine needed more time, and so Anakin would angrily swing forward for Palpatine's head, but a red lightsaber would ignite from Sidious's palm just in time to block, and a surge of lightning would hit the unsuspecting Anakin in the chest. Anakin flew backwards, crashing into the medical droids as fluids and pieces of machinery would fly all around the floor. He calmed his mind as best he could, but as he stared at Palpatine, he knew he was staring at the man who's caused so much death and chaos, and he saw Palpatine as the only person between him and his life with Padme. Sidious moved forward, and he told Anakin that this is truly unfortunate. He underestimated Anakin's abilities in the Force, and it allowed him to see behind the curtain of the visions. So be it. If he will not join the dark side, then he will simply be the first Jedi to fall to the coming Sith Empire. Their blades crashed against each other, and Anakin pushed Sidious back towards the surgical tables. Sidious would hit one of them, then reach up, sending a line of mechanical arms swinging down towards Anakin. Anakin cut through the first arm, rolled under the second, then pushed forward. Sidious moved fast, stepping onto the rim of the operating table, slashing downward. Anakin blocked, shoved upward, and forced Sidious off balance. But Sidious closed the gap, attacking with a rapid sequence of strikes aimed for Anakin's head. Anakin parried each one, but he was on his heels, faltering a bit as Sidious closed in, screaming with power. Then he tore down a storage rack right towards Anakin. It made Anakin dive to the floor, and Sidious just missed a cut for his legs. Anakin stood back up, and he slashed his blade into the door controls, leading to the outside bridge of the facility, overlooking the great city. Anakin backpedaled through the door, moving out onto the long platform. Wind tore across the sky. Speeders rushed in long lines below them in busy traffic. Sidious followed him without slowing, forcing Anakin back towards the landing platform, and soon the edge of the bridge. Anakin blocked a high strike, then a low one, but Sidious continued to advance, and a slash close to Anakin's left leg would push him off balance. He nearly slipped off the edge. He was breathing hard, and his mind would go back to the invisible hand. He remembered Palpatine's voice, telling him not to fear his feelings, telling him to feel his power, that rage is his weapon. And he remembered Dooku telling Anakin that his hate gives him power. Anakin gritted his teeth, and as Sidious locked blades with Anakin, pushing down on him to finish it, Anakin looked back up at the Dark Lord with a new look in his eyes. Sidious's smile would shift to a fearful look as Anakin pushed Sidious away, stepping forward with a dark aura. It was everything Sidious wanted Anakin to be, except the rage was focused on him. Anakin began raining strikes down on Sidious, trying to regain his footing, but Anakin wouldn't give him an inch. Anakin forced him backwards towards the edge of the platform, His blade drove Sidious's saber upward, then down, out to the side. Sidious struggled to redirect any momentum, so Anakin twisted hard, ripping the saber from Sidious's hand, and it spiraled off of the platform, into the city below. Sidious fired lightning at Anakin, but it was turned away with his blade, and Sidious was running out of options. He decided the best option was to jump off the bridge, hope that he can survive the fall with the Force. He jumped, but Anakin caught him with the Force, pulling him into his blade and slicing hard across Sidious's back. It was a deep gash. Sidious crumbled to the ground, trying to crawl away, but Anakin stepped on his ankle, breaking it, and Sidious stopped. Anakin stepped forward, looking down at the Sith Lord. This was the man responsible for all of it. Every single clone trooper death, every single world ravaged by the war, the trillions of citizens that have suffered, the Jedi that have died, all for nothing. And of course, the assassination attempts on Padme. Anakin would lift his blade for the kill, but he was suddenly hit with a stun blast from behind him. The Coruscant Guard clones finally broke through the doors, and they saw Anakin standing over the Chancellor. Anakin turned around, dazed from the stun blast, blocking the next few, before turning back around to finish Sidious. But Sidious was gone. The Dark Lord rolled off of the edge, floating down below. Anakin cursed, sprinting to the clones, alerting them to the truth of what was going on. And Coruscant would go into full lockdown. Anakin's word, along with security recordings, would show the truth about Palpatine, wielding a red blade, blasting lightning from his fingers. And Anakin would consider going to the ground below and searching for Sidious, but he knew the Dark Lord had his secret ways of getting around. Instead, he would hurry back to the temple. The Jedi would go over every other resource that Palpatine is in control of, including the Grand Army of the Republic. So, Anakin and Windu would go into the temple comms tower, and they would send out a message to the entire Grand Army. They would have all of the clones go dark on their comms, as Anakin was suddenly remembering something that Clone Trooper Fives had said before his death. Fives was trying to tell Anakin and Rex that there was a conspiracy that went all the way to the top with Palpatine himself. And it was not hard to infer from here that Tup's chip may not have actually malfunctioned when he killed Jedi Master Tiplar. That may have been the design, not the error. So the Jedi would make sure the clones could not answer any messages from Palpatine. And when that was settled in, entire search teams, led by 3 Jedi per group, would be sent out into Coruscant, trying to locate the Sith Lord. And down in the tunnels under Coruscant, Sidious would crawl down here, collapsing from the huge lightsaber gash scorching across his back. He would try to call upon as much strength as he could. He needed to get to his ship, located in the industrial sector base. It was a long walk. He could barely stand. But he would call upon the hate, the anger, and the fury inside of himself to use the pain and move step by step to the ship. He was enraged with Anakin. He vowed to destroy him if he can escape this world alive. And so for hours, the Jedi and clones would spread out. Finally, they would locate the tunnels under Coruscant that Palpatine has been using, and a squad of Windu, Skywalker, and Fisto, with over 40 clones, would move through them, tracing footprints unmasked by clone tracking tech, all the way to the industrial area. But when they arrived, the group would find an empty hangar. Traces left behind would indicate that the ship took off less than an hour ago. Coruscant was locked down in space. All the exit areas and hyperlanes were locked down, except for one. There was one exit hyperlane that was unknown to everyone but the Sith. It was the same way that Dooku was able to enter and exit Coruscant to meet with Sidious so often. And so Sidious would use this to blast off into hyperspace, leaving everything behind. And as Sidious made his escape, he knew he could wallow in the failure. He could give everything up, but he was far too angry to go down without a fight. Instead, he went to Utapau. Grievous and the final holdouts of the Separatists were there, and the Republic had not yet located them. Of course, there were many more battles still going on in the galaxy, but Grievous was the king on the board. Taking him out basically ensured victory. And so when Grievous was made aware by his Magna Guards that Sidious was here, he knew it must be urgent. Grievous would hurry down to the landing zone, and he would find Sidious tumbling down the ramp of the shuttle. Finding Grievous, ordering the general to bring him to the comms table. Sidious would get to the communicator, and he would attempt to use his signal to contact the Grand Army for Order 66. But to his surprise, he was getting no response. It was as if the entire army just disappeared. Sidious tried to remain calm, and he told Grievous that the Republic has given them a chance to catch them flat-footed. While they've gone silent on their comms, they must send out reinforcements to all of the key battles going on. If they can take Felucia, Megiddo, Cato Nemoidia, Seleucami, Collar, other major battles, then the war will continue on. So, the droids on Utapau would quickly be rounded up, departing into the galaxy. Grievous would lead a campaign to Cato Nemoidia. The Separatists would push back on many battles that seemed to be going in favor of the Republic. But Sidious did not join the battles. For him, this was all merely a distraction. Instead, as the war was increasing across the galaxy, he would travel to Dathomir, the old home of the Witches and Night Sisters. And as Sidious was scrambling across the galaxy, desperately searching for a way to emerge victorious, the Jedi and the Republic would see the emergence of these Separatist reinforcements, and they would fight back with everything they have. But first, a squad of Jedi led by Shakti would go to Kamino, and they would shut down the inhibitor chips in the clones, finding an order that nullified the influence of the Sith, should they ever try again. The clones would be freed from the influence of the chips, and the final battles would be gruesome. But even with the reinforcements from the Separatists, it would not be enough. On Kashyyyk, Felucia, Megiddo, the Republic would win. Without Sidious on Coruscant, Jedi like Anakin, Windu, Fisto, and other masters could go and aid these worlds without worrying about the emergence of the Sith. And on Cato Nemoidia, Obi-Wan Kenobi and the 212 would reinforce Plo Koon and his men. And in the Royal Palace on this world, Kenobi and Plo would be the two Jedi to ultimately defeat General Grievous, destroying him, effectively ending the war. And now, Sidious was on Dathomir, and the wound in his back was only getting worse. And all of the ancient Sith healing techniques could only go so far. He needed something new. He needed the Night Sister magic. But on Dathomir, the witches had been wiped out. Talzin was dead. And Sidious's pride, his desperation, and his need for survival drove him deeper. He tore open burial mounds, scavenged broken temples, but found nothing to restore him. He could feel himself fading, but he kept trying, and soon an entire week had passed by. He could barely stand, yet deep in the mountains, he finally felt a trace of ancient magic that he could use. It was a tomb of Kujet. He forced the stone doors open, and Sidious collapsed inside before the central altar, pouring out his darkness and his spirit into it, offering everything he had in exchange for survival. Sidious would get his wish as the green mist surged up around him, but it didn't exactly heal him. It blasted into Sidious, swallowing his flesh, crushing him, stripping it away. With a scream, Sidious would be torn apart, but he did not die. His hatred was holding his consciousness together, and the leftover magic of ancient rituals would recognize him as a dark soul, strong enough to become something new. The tomb's magic recognized Sidious's hatred, and it searched the Force for the person Sidious hates most in the galaxy, and then it searched the Force for whatever that person fears the most. The Force found Anakin's visions of Vader, and the green mist of Dathomir would swirl around the tomb. Old metals would be forged together around Sidious's spirit, putting him back together as something new. And after a long night of agony, Vader was dropped to the floor of the ancient tomb. Darth Vader was born. The darkness and ancient magic of Dathomir used Sidious as a vessel to become reborn, balancing out this world after the witches were wiped out. The breathing of Vader would fill the tomb, as this Sith Lord considered his next moves, and there was only one real option for what must come next. Anakin Skywalker must pay. Around 1 week after the birth of Vader with Sidious's spirit, there was a celebration of life happening on Naboo. Not long ago, the Clone Wars had come to a sudden end, and as peace talks settled around the galaxy, the Jedi felt the darkness basically just fade away. They assumed that Sidious died from his injuries, and when he didn't interfere with the end of the war, they felt he was gone. They were no longer treating the Sith Lord as a top priority. They were still searching for him, but not nearly as much. Ahsoka returned with Maul in custody. The clones were safe. Droids shut down. The Jedi Council was helping the transition of power in the Senate, as emergency powers were stripped away from the office of the Chancellor. And just a few days ago, Padme Amidala would give a safe birth to the twins, Luke and Leia. And now she was on Naboo, celebrating with Anakin and all of their greatest friends. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex, Cody, a few other clones, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, her royal aides, and her family were all here at the villa, When nightfall came upon the party, Padme would put the children to sleep as her parents were inside, watching over them, and Padme went back out for the final bits of the party. But before long, Rex, Cody, Jesse, and a few other clones decided to head out for the nights. They moved towards the landing zone near the villa, but as they were getting to their ship, a shuttle was touching down, and the ramp lowered with a burst of steam. The clones cautiously looked into the shuttle, hands on their blasters, and a red lightsaber would come spinning out of the steam, cutting through the heads of Jesse and 2 others as they fell dead. The blade landed right in the hand of Vader, and his breathing filled the air. He moved down the shuttle, blocking blaster fire from Rex and Cody, before blasting both of them with a huge force push, sending them flying hard into a nearby home. From the beach outside the villa, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka would hear the sound of blaster fire, and they took off for the home, telling the others to stay back. Vader moved forward, crushing the doors to the villa with a force push. Immediately, he saw Padme's parents. Vader lifted them into the air to crush their throats. But then, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka entered, getting between Vader and the family, as they would barely get away. Vader didn't say a word. He was solely focused on destroying everyone that Anakin Skywalker was close to. Anakin could feel the darkness radiating from him, and he charged forward. He knew this man. This was the man from his visions, the armor from his visions, the dark version of himself. So, Anakin was determined to destroy it for good. Vader swung towards him with powerful swings. Anakin blocked a strike, ducked another, dodged a stab that shattered a column, and he redirected Vader's next attack, shoving him away with a force push, buying Ahsoka and Obi-Wan a moment to move in. The 3 of them would attack together. Ahsoka slid beneath Vader's swing, cutting toward his abdomen, but the Dark Lord grabbed her wrist and slammed her into the wall. Obi-Wan leapt over Anakin, striking at Vader's shoulder, but Vader ducked, clashed his saber into Obi-Wan's. Anakin went straight for the helmet, driving Vader backwards, and with a scream of power, Vader raised both arms, unleashing a blast of green force energy that threw all 3 of them in different directions. This thing was extremely powerful. It was like Sidious and Vader combined into one being. He then moved towards Ahsoka first. She tried to get up as Vader closed in. She raised one blade, but Vader sliced through her remaining saber, grabbed her by the neck, then cut both her hands off as she tried to raise her blade once more. Vader closed his fist, choking her unconscious, then hurled her body into the hallway with the Force. Obi-Wan and Anakin came again, and Vader absorbed the blows, twisting his saber around, caught Kenobi's wrist. He held Anakin back with his other hand, and he slammed Kenobi into the ceiling. As Obi-Wan fell down, Vader clenched his fist and pulled the entire ceiling down as it collapsed onto Obi-Wan, burying him under stone and wood. Dust filled the air. Anakin yelled for Obi-Wan, but he knew this was all now up to him. Vader stepped through the dust towards him. Anakin held his ground, but was pushed back step by step across the villa floor as they were dueling. Vader was designed to fight Anakin, to fight the dark version of Anakin that defeated Dooku and Sidious. But this time, something would change. Anakin shut out the rage inside of him, and instead, he would reach for the light. He would reach for the balance of the Chosen One, the opposite of Vader. The shift was powerful. Anakin pushed Vader back with a single strike. Vader swung hard, but Anakin knocked the strike aside with one hand, driving his blade straight through Vader's shoulder. Vader stumbled, and Anakin hit him with a force push that slammed Vader into the wall. And before Vader could recover, Anakin used his power to slice all across the armor. Cracks spread through the metal. Vader reached out with raw, dark energy, and Anakin raised his free hand, pushing back, overwhelming it with light. Vader was crushed under the weight of Anakin's true power. He stepped forward, driving his blade straight through the chest plate. Vader froze, then began to shake violently as he erupted into an explosion of green mist. Sidious's spirit died with the armor of Vader, and the aftermath would settle over the villa as Anakin and the others would try to save Rex, Cody, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka. And they would all survive, stabilized by medics as they rushed to heal them. Within days, word would spread that the Sith were finally gone. The Jedi Order rebuilt itself with a new purpose, independent from politics, still working alongside the Republic when the galaxy needed their balance and guidance. The Senate reformed to prevent the rise of another Chancellor like Palpatine. And on Naboo, Luke and Leia grew up surrounded by family and friends, learning compassion from Padme, courage and discipline from Obi-Wan, patience, perspective from Ahsoka, and the truth of the Force from Anakin as a calling they would one day choose to follow in their own way. And folks, that is our story for today. One I enjoyed and one that had a lot of Force stuff going on. 2 days ago video, Mandalorian, was a lot more, I think, grounded. So this one, we dove a lot more into the Force, stretched canon a bit, made it fun, and I've wanted to do something where Vader is essentially like haunting or becomes a spirit like this, and just do that. So, I don't know, a lot of this was fun. I enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. And as always, let me know what you want to see next, and I will see you in the next video.